Very good morning, dear aspirants. Welcome to Learning Radius. Welcome to Learning Radius Current Affairs. Welcome to Learning Radius Current Affairs related to International Relations 2020-21. In this particular video, we'll be discussing another 10 topics, and the 10 topics as such are: UN resolution on Rohingyas, India launches 40th scientific expedition to Antarctica, 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue, Cabinet approves MOU between India and UAE for scientific and technical cooperation, India-European Union Maritime Security Dialogue, India-Bangladesh hold joint steering committee meeting on power sector, India welcomes agreement between United States and Russia to extend New START treaty by 5 years, first India-European Union high-level dialogue on trade and investment health, India-China to remove forward deployment in phased manner, UN Committee for World Food Security endorses voluntary guidelines to end hunger. So the next 10 topics are: UN Committee for World Food Security endorses voluntary guidelines to end hunger, India-China to remove forward deployments in phased manner, first India-EU high-level dialogue on trade and investment health, India welcomes agreement between United States and Russia to extend New START treaty by 5 years, India-Bangladesh hold joint steering committee meeting on power sector, India-EU Maritime Security Dialogue, Cabinet approves MOU between India and UAE for scientific and technical cooperation, 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue, India launches 40th scientific expedition to Antarctica, UN resolution on Rohingyas. The first topic is UN resolution on Rohingyas. Bangladesh has expressed happiness over UN resolution on Rohingyas adopted at the 75th General Assembly. China and Russia stood beside Myanmar while India and Japan refrained from voting a draft resolution on the situation of human rights of Rohingya Muslims and other minorities in Myanmar. Russia, China, Belarus, Cambodia, Laos, Philippines, Vietnam, Zimbabwe and Myanmar themselves were the 9 countries that voted against the resolution that is in Myanmar's favor. So Bangladesh had expressed happiness over UN resolution on Rohingyas adopted the 75th General Assembly. A total of 26 countries including India, Japan, Sri Lanka and Singapore abstained from voting on the resolution. Bangladesh and Myanmar had signed a repatriation deal in November 2017, followed by a physical agreement in January 2018 to facilitate the return of Rohingyas to the Rakhine province. However, there has been success in the repatriation of Rohingyas despite 2 failed attempts in the past. Currently, more than 1 million Rohingyas are living in refugee camps in Bangladesh after fleeing the military crackdown in Rakhine province of Myanmar in August 2007. So, United Nations resolution on Rohingyas, that's a discussion, and Bangladesh has expressed happiness over the UN resolution on Rohingyas adopted at the 75th General Assembly, that's a discussion. Then United Nations adopt resolution for urgent resolution of Rohingya crisis. The United Nations has adopted a resolution calling for the urgent solution of Rohingya crisis. The resolution tabled by Organization of Islamic Countries and European Union was adopted by a majority of 132 countries voting in favor, 9 against and 31 abstentions. The resolution has taken some new developments into account, such as the provincial order of the International Criminal Court of Justice and the issue of disenfranchisement of the Rohingyas and other minorities. So that's a basic discussion regarding Rohingya crisis. At the same time, the fundamental clarity regarding Rakhine province, at the same time Rohingyas, and the UN adoptions resolution for United Nations adopts resolution for urgent solution of Rohingya crisis. The current affairs should be there in your mind. The resolution called for specific action on part of Myanmar to address the root cause of Rohingya crisis, including guaranteeing them citizenship and ensuring safe and sustainable return to their homes by creating a conducive environment. So that's a discussion regarding Rohingya crisis. Next is India launches 40th scientific expedition to Antarctica. India launched the 40th scientific expedition to Antarctica. This Indian expedition marks 4 decades of country's scientific endeavor to southern white continent. The 40th expedition journey will be flagged off from Goa on January 5, 2021 with 43rd with 43 members on board. That was a new scheme during that particular time. So India launched 40th scientific expedition to Antarctica. Obviously, Antarctica fundamentals should be there in your mind. The focus is to support the ongoing scientific project on climate change, geology, ocean observation, electric and magnetic flux measurements, environmental monitoring, resupplying of food, fuel, provisions and spare, and accomplishing the return of the winter crew. India is committed to maintaining the continent of Antarctica free of COVID-19. The expedition will duly follow all protocol for the deployment of men and material as per Council of Managers of National Antarctic Program, that is COMNAP, that is Council of Managers of National Antarctic Program. Extra precautions of sanitizing the cargo, mandatory 14 days of quarantine, pre and post expedition, and RT-PCR testing before boarding the ice class vessel is also being conducted. So that is about India Antarctica expedition, and the fundamentals are like this. The India Antarctica expedition began in 1981, so 40 years. The first trip comprised of a team of 21 scientists and support staff led by Dr. XZ Qasim. India has two operational research stations in Antarctica named Maitri and Bharati. The National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, Goa, manages the entire Indian Antarctic program. The Indian Antarctic program has now credited to have built 3 permanent research stations in Antarctica named Dakshin Gangotri, Maitri and Bharati. So clarity should be there related to Dakshin Gangotri, Maitri and Bharati. The preceding 39th Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica was launched in November 2019. Next discussion is related to 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue. Both sides expressed satisfaction at the ongoing defence cooperation between the two countries in spite of the limitation imposed by COVID-19. Defence Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar co-chaired the 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue along with his Vietnamese co-chair Senior Lieutenant General Nguyen Chi Vinh, Deputy Defence Minister, Socialist Republic of Vietnam. So here the 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue, they exchange views on the plan of action that has emanated from the recently concluded virtual summit between Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and Prime Minister of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Nguyen Xuan Phuc, in December 2020. Now they discuss the new areas of defence cooperation too. So that is related to the 13th India-Vietnam Defence Security Dialogue. Next one is Cabinet approves MOU, that is Cabinet approves Memorandum of Understanding between India and UAE for scientific and technical cooperation. So the Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has given his approval to the Memorandum of Understanding on scientific and technical cooperation between National Center of Meteorology, United Arab Emirates and Ministry of Earth Sciences, India. The MOU provides for sharing of knowledge, data and operational products for meteorological, seismological and oceanic services such as radar, satellite, tide gauges, seismic and meteorological stations. So here Cabinet approves MOU between India and UAE for scientific and technical cooperation. The Memorandum of Understanding provides for sharing of knowledge, data and operational products for meteorological, seismological and oceanic services such as radar, satellite, tide gauges, seismic and meteorological stations. The key points of the discussion: exchange of experience, visit in terms of scientists, research scholars and specialists, etc. for the purpose of research, training, consultation focused on climatic information services, satellite data utilization for nowcasting and tropical cyclone forecasting, exchange of scientific and technical information related to common interest activities, organization of bilateral scientific and technical seminars, workshops, conferences and training courses on problems related to the field of cooperation mentioned in the MOU and of interest to both countries. So there is MOU between India and UAE. Next discussion is India-European Union Maritime Security Dialogue. India and European Union held their first Maritime Security Dialogue in a virtual format. The Maritime Dialogue was chaired by Director Janaki Balfoot on the EEAS side and Joint Secretary Sandeep Bharia on the Indian side. So European Union Maritime Security Dialogue. So India-European Union Maritime Security Dialogue. The consultation involved exchange on development in maritime security environment, regional cooperation activities, development of mutual interest, and opportunities for cooperation between India and European Union. The dialogue seeks to develop a mutual understanding and cooperation opportunities between India and European Union in maritime security domain as another factor of the strategic partnership between the two sides, consistent with India-European Union Roadmap to 2025. Next discussion is India-Bangladesh hold Joint Steering Committee meeting on power sector. The 19th meeting of the Joint Steering Committee on India-Bangladesh cooperation in the energy sector was held in Dhaka. The Joint Steering Committee took stock of the progress of implementation of the decision taken during the last meeting of the Joint Working Group and Joint Steering Committee. So that is between India and Bangladesh hold Joint Steering Committee meeting on power sector. The 19th meeting of the Joint Steering Committee on India-Bangladesh cooperation in the energy sector was held in Dhaka. Indian delegation was led by Secretary Power Sanjeev Nandan Sahai, while Mohammad Habibur Rahman, Secretary Power, represented the Bangladesh side at the meeting. The meeting also discussed the status of 1,320 megawatt Maitri Super Thermal Power Project Rampal. So Maitri Super Thermal Power Project Rampal is again into discussion. Have a clear understanding of the same. So India-Bangladesh hold Joint Steering Committee meeting on power sector. Detailed discussion were held on power trade between India and Bangladesh through various interconnections and further ways for enhancing the cooperation in the energy sector. And the last meeting was held in March 2020 in Udaipur in India. So this was the background behind the discussion between India and Bangladesh. India welcomed agreement between US and Russia to extend New START treaty by 5 years. India welcomed the agreement between United States of America and Russia to extend the treaty on measures for the further reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms, that is New START, till 2026. The New START or Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty was signed between Moscow and Washington in 2010 and came into force in 2011. So once again, India welcomed the agreement between United States of America and Russia to extend the treaty on measures for further reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms till 2026. The New START or Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty was signed between Moscow and Washington in 2010 and came into force in 2011. So 2021 is the 10th year of Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. It's a nuclear arm reduction treaty which replaced the Treaty of Moscow. So once again, Treaty of Moscow, as it was replaced by START, it established a new inspection and verification regime replacing the previous mechanism, along with reducing the number of strategic nuclear missile launchers by half in both the United States and Russia. Next discussion is about first India-EU high-level dialogue on trade and investment. The first high-level dialogue co-chaired by the Minister of Commerce and Industry Shri Piyush Goyal and the European Union Executive Vice President and Trade Commissioner Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis was held. Commitment to the establishment of this dialogue was a major outcome of the 15th India-EU Leaders Summit held in July 2020 with an objective for a ministerial level guidance towards the bilateral trade and investment relation. So here, in short, it is the first India-European Union high-level dialogue on trade and investment. The key point emphasized the importance of global cooperation and solidarity in a post-COVID-19 era and agreed for further deepening of bilateral trade and investment relationship through a series of regular engagement aiming at quick deliverable for the business in these tough times. The ministers also agreed to meet within the next 3 months with an objective for reaching consensus on a host of bilateral trade and investment cooperation issues with a bilateral regulatory dialogue and India-European Union multilateral dialogue to explore further possibilities of cooperation. Next discussion is about India-China to remove forward deployment in phased manner. India and China finally reaching an agreement on disengagement at Pangong Lake, which has been at the heart of the recent LAC tension, is a promising start towards restoring peace in the border areas. So India and China finally reaching an agreement on disengagement at Pangong Lake. So Pangong Lake is in discussion. The geography, the politics behind should be clear in your mind. So India-China to remove forward deployment in phased manner, that's the discussion. And India-China finally reaching an agreement on disengagement at Pangong Lake, which has been at the heart of the recent LAC tension, is promising start towards restoring peace in the border areas. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said both sides will cease their forward deployment on north and south banks of the lake in a phased, coordinated and verified manner. So that's the discussion about. And China Ministry of Defense announced an agreement to start synchronized and organized disengagement. Both sides have agreed to a temporary moratorium on patrolling in the disputed areas north and south of the lake, the withdrawal of the armored elements including tanks that have been in dangerously close proximity. All frontline personnel will subsequently be withdrawn over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's the discussion in connection with India-China to remove forward deployment in phased manner and disengagement at Pangong Lake. Now the next discussion and the final topic is UN Committee for Food. The UN Committee for World Food Security endorses voluntary guidelines to end hunger. The first ever voluntary guidelines on food system and nutrition meant to end hunger and malnutrition were endorsed by members of the Committee on World Food Security. The endorsement took place at the 47th session of CFS that was held virtually February 8 to 11. The guidelines have been developed to support countries their effort to eradicate all forms of hunger and malnutrition by utilizing a comprehensive food system approach according to the document released on the occasion. So the first ever voluntary guidelines on food system and nutrition meant to end hunger and malnutrition were endorsed by a member of the Committee on World Food Security. So that's the discussion. UN Committee for World Food Security endorses voluntary guidelines to end hunger. That's the discussion. Now they are structured around 7 focus areas. The first one, transparent, democratic and accountable governance, sustainable food supply chain to achieve healthy diets in the context of economic, social and environment sustainability and climate change, equal and equitable access to healthy diets through sustainable food system, food safety across sustainable food system, people-centered nutrition, knowledge, education and information, gender equality and women's empowerment across food system, resilient food system in humanitarian context. So these are the 7 focus area in connection with UN Committee for World Food Security endorses voluntary guidelines to end hunger. Now what is Committee on World Food Security? The Committee on World Food Security is the foremost inclusive international and intergovernmental platform for all stakeholders to work together to ensure food security and nutrition for all. So once again, Committee on Food Security or Committee on World Food Security is the foremost inclusive international and intergovernmental platform for all stakeholders to work together to ensure food security and nutrition for all. The committee reports to the United Nations General Assembly through Economic and Social Council and to FAO conference. The CFS, that is the Committee on World Food Security, receive its core funding equally from the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the World Food Programme. So the Committee on World Food Security receive its core funding equally from the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the World Food Programme. So the Committee on World Food Security is the foremost inclusive international and intergovernmental platform for all stakeholders to work together to ensure food security and nutrition to all. So that is about Committee on Food Security or Committee on World Food Security. So that's all in this video. That's all about the 10 topics. In the next video, we'll be discussing the next 10 topics of international relations, and we'll be moving to January 2021 and February 2021 in the coming videos. And we are in 2021 right now. We completed almost the discussions of international relations related to December 2020. So that's all for the now, and have a peaceful study, have a very productive learning. Calm version is the most productive version. At the same time, watch the analysis video. At the same time, watch the understanding video. When you watch the analysis video related to 2020 question paper, then only, and 21 question paper, then only you will be having an understanding how UPSC frame preliminary question from all this type of topics. So keep an extra eye on analysis, UPSC analysis question paper, and you will get a clarity how you are supposed to understand all this current affairs to the level of UPSC's questions. Have a great time. Meet you in the next video. Thank you.